You don't have to live with pain or chronic neuro issues any longer. In this podcast, you will learn how to stabilize your brain, body, and biochemistry for the rest of your life. I'm Dr. Teams, and this is the NeuroRESET podcast. How we doing? Coming at you, just going to do a quick little case review here. So this is what we're going to be reviewing today, guys. So we had a patient come in with dysautonomia, and essentially this particular individual was a high activity person who was running a team of about 50 people, working out multiple days a week. Everything was going great. And for no particular reason, things started going downhill. Well, it turns out this person had COVID a couple of months prior to this happening. So it might be a case of post-COVID issues. It sounds like it, but they're not totally convinced that it is. Either way, I wanted to review with what they were describing, all the symptoms that they were experiencing, from the heart palpitations to chronic fatigue to very easily set off, meaning like sensitive to light, sound, commotion, things of that nature. And so this individual ended up having to step down from their job of running the office, and it was really unfortunate to see this because this guy was roughly 30 years old, very successful, building a great life for himself, and all the bottom falls out, right? And so he didn't understand why. So he would try to work out and it would make it worse. And so he just didn't know what to do. So as part of our initial evaluation, we measure the eyes. Typically we measure balance, but for whatever reason that isn't here. I don't think it was either working that day or for anywho, but we're going to skip on to the eyes. So we're going to start with the eyes. And the reason that we measure the eyes is that the eyes are the only sensory organ that allow us to measure the entire brain. Front of the brain, back of the brain, sides of the brain, brainstem, cerebellum, vestibular system, and even the autonomic system. And what that helps us understand is when we look at these pathways, they might be good or bad, right? If the pathways are good, then there's some other reason why they're not feeling good, right? His function when he presented was roughly 30%. And we find that anybody under about 60% of function tends to not be able to work, right? So that 60, 70%, if I see that on their intake, we usually know that they are still able to complete some form of job, not optimally, and they're struggling, but they can still typically hold a job. And so this individual comes in at 30% function, heart palpitations, brain fog, anxiety symptoms, sensitivity to all sorts of things, those heart palpitations, the chronic fatigue, sleep-related issues, just can't tolerate exercise. Kind of, the whole picture is present when dealing with people with dysautonomia. Now, he didn't present with POTS, meaning there was not a difference of 30 beats from laying down to standing when looking at his heart rate. But at the same time, he was fairly close. So we needed to understand what was going on. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at these eyes, right? And if you look at the bottom left of our screen, we see green, yellow, and red, right? We want to see mostly greens and yellows throughout this test. This is our eye test, right? And so when we look at this, and I'm actually going to rotate the screen here so you can see it a little bit better, is at first glance, right? And so if I drag this around, you can see both eyes are there. So let me get you acquainted here. So the right eye shows up in red on these graphs. The left eye shows up in blue on these graphs. Something like this right here is going to indicate a blink. So this is no major deal. However, we want those red and blue lines to essentially be overlapping, right? Just like they are in the bottom graph here. The top graph, you can see that those blue and red lines are actually separating. They're staying together, then they're separating. And so what that does for us is it helps us understand that the eyes are coming together and moving apart. So this guy is dealing with some different issues. Whoops. Let me get back to that screen. And so this guy's dealing with some different issues with his eyes moving together and apart. We go to the next test, and what we want to say is the green line is the target line, right? So if I'm going to move this dot or show you what the patient's seeing, it's a dot that just simply moves to his right side. And so that's him trying to look at that dot. That is a significant amount of problems that this guy is dealing with, right? I don't know why this keeps doing that. Sorry, gang. And so, looking at this graph, this brain is struggling so stinking hard that he literally doesn't have any function or communication in his brain. When we look at the quality of someone's life, essentially, we look at the pathways, right? And the pathways are going to show up on our devices. If the pathways are good, that means the integration is bad in terms of their function. So pathways plus integration equals function, okay? So when we look at these pathways, if the pathways are poor, we know that they're not integrating well at all. Does that make sense? It's a very simple algorithm that we use, or equation that we use, to help people understand what they're looking at, right? So if I'm going to play that one more time, and you're going to watch these eyes go near and far, or together and apart. So they're going to converge and diverge. They're not staying on the target. They're moving off the target constantly. Even right here, this is something right here as we replay this, you watch those eyes completely constrict or converge, and then they go back to normal. Like, this guy is really, really struggling. So we've got to help him out. So as we look through some other tests, I'm just going to check out a couple here, right? So this individual is just struggling. His eyes cannot track, which means the areas of his brain responsible for tracking targets, right, our visual field, is not functioning properly, okay? We look at this. This was just incredible to see. This was one of the worst saccade tests that I had seen. And unfortunately, the moment I looked at this, at that moment, I knew how bad this guy's life was. But we are very happy to say, and I'm going to show you the comparisons here, that his life is already changing. So this has been just over a month ago. He just left for a vacation, and he wasn't sure he was going to be able to go on that vacation. So this was just 1 week later. The top graph is day one. The bottom graph is the second week, or really the end of the first week that he treated with us. So we're watching literal changes in these neurological structures and integration of these areas that are now starting to fire properly, okay? And so we're going to jump up here into the saccade mechanism. Whoops. So day one is on the top. As I compare, we're going to go to the 9th. So this is roughly 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks later. Look at the changes in this graph. These are some of the fastest and most incredible changes that we've seen here in the office in terms of 4 weeks or 3 to 4 weeks worth of work. And guess what? This guy is back to going to the grocery store with his girlfriend, tolerating it just fine. He's able to start to work out a bit. We're doing his treatment standing up because his fatigue wouldn't allow him to stand up anymore. His heart palpitations are going away. His anxiety's decreased by 50%. And he's not even halfway through. He's about a third of the way through his program right now. And so we are happy to share and update you that this guy was able to go on his vacation and just have an amazing time. And we're looking forward to getting him back because he's been emailing us and letting us know what's going on. So anyway, if you guys know anybody that's struggling or really is looking for a different look at things, right? That's not medication, that's not surgery, and somebody who honestly is looking for hope, that really would be who we're looking for to try to help. As long as they want to get better, we can certainly help them get better. So have them give us a call. Desert Brain and Spine. I'm Dr. Teams, our whole crew here, Dr. Rachel, Coach Ree, Coach Jess, Kathy, and Amanda. We would love to just try to change these people's lives for the better. So just have them give us a call. We'll see you soon.